All right, this is a book of ballet stories for children called Of Swans, Sugarplums, and Satin Slippers by Violette Verdy. This first story is called The Firebird. Once upon a time, there lived a prince named Ivan, who was young and handsome and brave. Now, in his land, many people whispered stories about a very special tree that grew deep in the forest. Upon its branches hung golden apples. No one who had tried to find this tree had ever returned. Ivan decided he must find this magic tree. So he went and searched through the darkest, eeriest woods until he was quite lost. Then, in the distance, he saw a golden ray shining. He crept towards it and found himself in a mysterious garden. And in the center of the garden stood the tree with the golden apples. The prince had never seen a tree quite like this one. He inched forward for a better look. Just then, a flash of bright light shot through the air, very nearly blinding him. Prince Ivan held back, shielding his eyes from the brilliant glare. What could it be, he wondered. All at once, a stunning creature made of fire soared into the clearing. Half bird, half woman, this Firebird was dazzling to behold. She had feathers of bright, bright red, which shimmered and sparkled, tapering off in fiery flames. She was magnificent in every way, majestic and proud, with gorgeous movements that seemed to whip the very air about her. The prince watched, unobserved, as she swooped and dipped towards the magical tree, intent on grabbing one of its apples. I must capture this glorious creature, thought Ivan. He dashed forward and snapped his arms around her. Too late, the bird realized the danger. She struggled in Ivan's tight grip, twisting her body in a frantic effort to free herself. The Firebird leaped at him over and over again, beating her wings, but the prince held fast. Gradually, the Firebird stopped struggling, though her body remained tense and her expression fearful as the prince circled her, examining her marvelously feathered wings and dazzling colors. The Firebird pulled as far away from him as she could. The prince folded in the bird's wings, stilling their motion. The Firebird grew sadder and sadder in his arms and more anxious. How could she make the prince understand that she could not live as a captive? But Prince Ivan did understand. I cannot keep her, he decided. This is a wild creature, meant to be free. Deliberately, he loosened his grasp. The Firebird broke away and rose into the air. To reward him for this gesture, for her freedom, the Firebird pulled a splendid red feather from her wing. This was a magical charm, and the prince must keep it with him always. He need only brandish it in time of need, and she would be at his side. Ivan took the feather and bowed in gratitude, but when he raised his head, she was gone. Suddenly, he heard the sound of an approaching melody. Prince Ivan quickly hid once again. 10 young princesses danced into the clearing. They wore soft embroidered gowns and little caps. Underneath, their hair hung loose. The princesses sang and skipped and playfully threw the golden apples into the air like balls. How startled they were when Ivan stepped out of the shadows. An intruder. They gathered together and whispered nervously. Ivan was rather amused at their uneasiness, for certainly he meant no harm. He asked if one of the maidens might come to him, and one did come, the most beautiful princess of all. "Who are you?" asked Ivan, "and why are you here?" The princess was very shy, but Prince Ivan was gentle and coaxing, and soon she was telling him about an evil magician named Kashi. "This garden is his garden, and everything in it belongs to him, even the princesses. We are all captives of Kashi." Naturally, the good Prince Ivan was horrified. He determined to do something about this evil sorcerer. Meanwhile, he and the princess were falling in love. They danced among the circle of princesses, so happy, and when they embraced, the girls teased and pulled them apart. But the sharp sound of trumpets ended these moments of joy. "Kashi," they whispered. The girls, shaking with fear, fled inside the castle. The princess gave Ivan one last kiss, and the lovers parted. Ivan resolved to save his princess. He, too, ran into the castle. He would finish off Kashi once and for all. But once inside, Prince Ivan was greeted by a horrible sight. Hundreds of statues lined the cold, cheerless room. All Kashi's victims turned to stone. Hideous monsters flew out of the shadows and surrounded the prince, imprisoning and tormenting him. But the most terrible sight of all was Kashi. He was a stooped, ugly, old sorcerer with gnarled fingers and long, sharp nails. His body was skeleton-like, and on his head was a spiked crown of burning gold. He smiled a loathsome smile and beckoned to Ivan. The princess pleaded for her prince, but Kashi merely laughed, a wild and terrible sound. At the last possible moment, Prince Ivan pulled out the Firebird's feather. He waved it in the air, and suddenly a brilliant light appeared. The Firebird. As promised, she had come to Ivan's rescue. Her very presence hypnotized the monsters. They followed her, blinded and disoriented, matching her every movement, swirling and slinking and rising. The dance grew wilder and wilder, and the monsters leapt into the air as if, like the Firebird, they too could take flight. Kashi watched, furious, but unable to do anything to stop the Firebird. Finally, the monsters fell, exhausted. The Firebird floated amongst the ugly creatures, calming them, lulling them into gentle sleep. Then she motioned towards a big wooden box. Inside was a large egg, and in that egg was Kashi's soul. The Firebird told Ivan that if he broke the egg, the sorcerer would die. Kashi cringed and cried. He pleaded for mercy. He tried to snatch the egg from Ivan. But the prince lifted it, and with all his strength, he smashed it to the floor. Kashi was destroyed. The Firebird's mission was over. She rose into the air, then she was gone. Morning came. The sun climbed above the trees, bathing the castle in glorious brightness. Stone statues crumbled, and the humans within breathed life once again. Even the monsters had grown tame. Prince Ivan and the princess ascended the palace steps and looked out on the newly free kingdom that was now theirs to rule forever. They pledged their love, and in that place where gloom had reigned for so long, they were wed. And somehow, as Prince Ivan looked into the fiery sunrise, he knew that the Firebird was near, watching over them. The end.